And I'm going to, can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to step outside, where I think we still have good wireless, but you can also see the telescope dome of the Twin Magellan Telescope. So there are two 6.5-meter telescopes up here in Chile. And so now you're looking at the dome of the other one, which is across the way, which looks just like this one, but it's hard to see because we're so close to it that it is a very, very big thing. So these telescopes that we're using are very similar to the ones that you're using to study transiting planets. The only difference is that they are much bigger. So that allows us to detect more photons from our stars. It allows us to make more precise measurements. And so it allows us to study smaller planets and study them in sort of more complicated ways. Much bigger. And so the kind of measurement that we're trying to take right now is we're trying to study the atmosphere of the rocky planet 1132b. And so this is a planet that's about 1.2 times the size of the Earth, transiting a really small star. And so even though it's a very small planet, because it transits a really small star, it blocks a relatively large fraction of that star's light. And so we're actually trying to detect the tiny little fraction of starlight that filters through the planet.
We just lost your audio there, Zach.
What if I say?
You're back on.
Okay, great. This is one of the hazards of Chile, is that sometimes the wireless comes and goes. Yeah, so we're trying to look to see if we can detect basically kind of the color of the sunset on the planet is really the measurement that we're trying to make. And so with a little bit of luck and a lot of time on the telescope, I think we should be able to make it.
Oh.
All right,
Yep, when you're back in that corner, we can't hear you.
We'll go back here, where things are a little bit back inside. Wireless is a little bit more stable. Does anybody have any questions for an astronomer who is preparing for a night on the telescope?
So if you can find constituents in the atmosphere, which is what you're trying to do, how big a leap is it from finding basic constituents to actually looking for things like biomarkers in an atmosphere of a planet?
It's kind of a quantitative leap, I would say, not a qualitative leap. That the features that we're looking for right now in this planet's atmosphere are most likely the thing we could see first would be water in this planet's atmosphere. The planet is like 500 degrees Kelvin. That's far too hot for life to exist on the planet. So we're not thinking about biosignatures whatsoever. But if we had a bigger telescope, we could, instead of looking for water, which has these very strong features, we could look for things like oxygen, which have a much smaller, it's a deep feature, but it's a little bit narrower in wavelength, so we need more photon collecting power to be able to detect it. But with a telescope that's, maybe a few times as big as this one, we should be able to do that. And that sounds wild, but they're actually just across the way. They're building the giant Magellan telescope here, which will be 24, 25 meters across. And so it will have the collecting area that for some planets it could, if we find the right planet around the right star, and that's close enough and easy enough to observe, we might be able to look for things that could be interpreted as biomarkers. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Jordan or Susan or?
I don't feel like I even know enough to ask questions.
Well, I mean, there are all sorts of questions you can ask. There's like, when did I wake up this morning?
Yeah, I would like to know that.
So I think Hannah is a little bit more responsible. So she got up a little bit earlier than me at, I think, about 11:45. I slept until about 1, and then had lunch, and then we came up here to do our calibrations. And then we'll be up all night until about 7 in the morning when the sun rises again, and then we'll go back down to the dorms to sleep. so when you're here, you're working all night long, and so you have to be on a nighttime schedule. So we get up in the afternoon. Sometimes we make it to lunch, sometimes we don't. We have dinner, we observe all night long. The chefs here in the kitchen make us a sandwich for the middle of the night. So we have a little night lunch whenever we feel like while we're observing, and then drink a lot of coffee, and then go to bed at just after the sun rises.
So how long have you been working in Chile on this particular project?
We've been here we observed on the 27th, and we've been sort of hanging out here, analyzing the data and thinking about ways to improve it. And we're observing again tonight. And so I've been here since the 27th. Hannah's going back tomorrow. I will actually stay here through the 9th because we have a few more nights coming up at the end. So this is my longest stay at the mountain here. Usually I come for just a few nights and then go.
Okay.
So aren't you guys happy that, Frank, we just send you images from our robotic telescope in Arizona? You don't have to stay up all night with it. Although, I don't know, this could be fun.
There's some perks to being here, I'll admit.
Or travel.
So
How
does
long does it take to get you there? How long does it take a flight from Cambridge to Chile, assuming you have a good passport, etc.?
Right, yeah. So door to door to get from like my apartment in North Cambridge in Massachusetts to get to the top of the mountain here, that involves 3 flights and usually takes something about 24 hours total. So I fly on this trip, we flew through Atlanta to Santiago, Chile, to La Serena, which is up farther up the coast, and then a bus picked us up and drove us up to the top of the mountain here. So it's a long trip, but you can sleep in sort of the chaos of all of that can help you get onto a nighttime schedule sometimes. You're so exhausted that you'll take a nap whenever in the afternoons, then you can very, very quickly switch yourself over to staying up all night.
Do you feel the effects of altitude?
A little bit, yeah. This is, as we're walking, we're at about 8,000 feet here, so it's not too high, but we certainly feel it as we're walking around and climbing up from the dorms to the telescopes. It's a bit of a steep climb, and so we're always pretty winded by the end of that. But
when you pick your target stars, do you use the Kepler data to narrow it down, or how do you pick what stars you're going to aim for?
So the planet that we're observing right now, in particular, this is a planet that we found actually not with Kepler. We found this last year using an array of small telescopes, moderate-sized telescopes, that are about 40 centimeters in diameter. So that's bigger than the MicroObservatory telescopes, but not that much bigger. And we used those telescopes to monitor the brightness of about a few thousand very nearby, very small stars, looking for these planets that would be easy to study, things that are small and cool and potentially rocky, but transit stars that are small enough that they block a large enough fraction that you can study them in detail. And so we found this one planet, and now the year after, this is our first chance to really come back to the telescope and just hammer away at it to try to learn more about its properties. And so that's sort of the philosophy that if you can find a planet with a very small telescope, then when you point a much bigger telescope at it, you can learn a lot more about it. So we don't usually use Magellan to try to look for additional planets or to confirm many things, just because it's such a precious resource, the time on this really, really big telescope, that when we come here, we're really sure that we know what target we're looking at and what planet is there and what we expect to see, or what we could hope to see by getting these data.
Hmm.
What part of Chile is the Magellan in? Like northern third, middle third, lower third?
I'd say about northern third, bottom, like sort of 2/3 of the way up. We're at the southern part of the Atacama Desert, so it's not super high, not super dry up here, so it's still fairly convenient to get to, but certainly feels like a bit of a moonscape up here. Really the only other human-made structure that you can see from here are a few more telescopes on the next mountain over that are run by the European Southern Observatory.
What's the name of the star again you're studying?
It's GJ 1132b is the particular planet that we're studying around it. So the star is GJ 1132, and the planet.
And what constellation is that in?
It's in the constellation Vela. I don't know my southern constellations that well, so yeah, because I'm not used to looking at them. But while we're here, it has been pretty incredible to just do get time to stargaze at this really, really beautiful dark site. So we're slowly learning the southern sky a little bit better. So Hannah, can I ask how the calibrations are going?
Calibrations are going really well.
Awesome.
Right now we are turning on a neon lamp, which is going to allow us, we're going to disperse that light along our detector, and we're going to figure out exactly where neon has emission lines, and that's going to help us calibrate our data when we're looking at a star, which could have emission lines everywhere. We want to know which ones are which.
Yeah.
So I'm about to start that right now.
Yeah. So the instrument that we're using not only gives us a light curve in one particular wavelength. So with the MicroObservatory, you're sort of averaging over a kind of broadband color. With this telescope, we can measure how much light the planet blocks at lots and lots and lots of different wavelengths of light. And so that's what allows us to look for these little features in the planet's atmosphere. And it's good that the calibrations are going well, because we have sort of limited time. It's about 5 o'clock right now here in Chile, and we're going to and dinner's at 6:30. So we want to make sure that the instrument scientists and us can go back down and get dinner before we have to observe for the night. So I think we're on track to be done by then.
Now, Zach, can you say how it is, like, at what point did you get into astronomy, and then at what point did it become exoplanets?
I got into astronomy when I was in college. I guess I was I always liked science and math, but in high school I didn't really have the opportunity to do any sort of kind of astronomy projects or research. I didn't learn anything about astronomy pretty much until I got to college. And then I took an astrobiology class that I really liked. It was taught by an astronomer and a biologist and a chemist and a geologist. And I liked all parts of that class, but I liked the astronomy part the best. And I liked the idea that, oh gosh, there's a chance that we could, scientifically be looking for life on other planets. And that seems like something that would be fun to be involved in. And so, but while I was an undergrad, I didn't really work on planet stuff that much at all. I liked that idea, but I mostly worked on studying galaxy clusters and things like that. But then when I got to grad school, I met my advisor, Dave Charbonneau, and I liked the project that he was working on, and sort of dove into that and really went from there. And it's been really fun. Astronomy is a really cool field because there's just so much left that we don't know. Like this planet that we found is around, the star is like the 500th closest star to Earth, approximately. And so it's a very, of the billions and billions of stars in the galaxy, nobody had looked at this star for planets yet. And all it took was taking a little telescope and looking at it and trying to see what you could see. And we found something pop out. So it's I think it's really rewarding as a field to have that there are big discoveries that you can make sort of pretty quickly getting into the game.
Cool.
Any other questions?
How's the food on top of the mountain?
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, they have great chefs here, and so we eat far better here than I do at home with my hectic. So it's great. So every for lunch and dinner they cook these beautiful meals with like gorgeous salads, mountains of avocado and hearts of palm, and then and like a really nice.
Wow.
It's a really good deal if you get the chance to go to an Las Campanas is a particularly nice observatory, but some of them feed you particularly well. And this is definitely one of those. And I think, and there are a few weird fruits too that I really like. So in Chile there are some. We've got some. I was eating some. I had a prickly pear the other night, which was really delicious. And some, I think there's some like a cucumber melon type thing that's been really good. So it's fun to get to explore some new foods while I'm here as well.
Shutter closed.
How's the weather look tonight?
It was cloudy earlier, and there's still some clouds on the horizon, which are scaring us. But I see a lot of blue skies out the window, so I think we'll get some useful data. So I'm looking forward to it.
Now, I just have one question about the difference. You know, we've had a lot of people ask us if small telescopes are discovering exoplanets, you know, why can't we use MicroObservatory to discover some new ones as opposed to look for ones that have been discovered? And I just wanted you to kind of explain what it takes for your small telescopes to make a discovery, and what can you know?
Sure, yeah, totally. So when we're looking, so our telescopes are a little bit bigger, and we have to look at a few thousand stars, and we very carefully vetted this sample of stars to look for these planets, and our stars are sort of faint. So frankly, like we couldn't study them with a telescope smaller than this. Like if it was just this small, you wouldn't be able to get enough photons to be able to detect transits going in front of them. There are surveys so like the WASP survey, for example, or the HAT survey. These are planets that you're observing with a MicroObservatory. WASP-12 was discovered by the WASP survey. They also use telescopes that are similar in size to the MicroObservatory. They're only about this big. But they have very wide fields of view, and those telescopes are observing thousands or hundreds of thousands of stars at once, and then going through and have sophisticated computer algorithms that are going through and measuring the brightness of all of those, and then doing an additional, like really computationally intensive search to find these additional little dips that appear. And then when they find those dips, typically something like 95% of them aren't planets. 95% of them are things that are like binary stars that are blended with other stars, or triple stars, or all sorts of various complicated arrangements. And so it takes then a lot of additional vetting with other telescopes of all sizes, from here up to like meter, up to a few meter telescopes, to confirm which one of those things are actually planets. And so yes, in principle, it is possible to use your small telescope to look for planets, but in practice, it's a quantitative challenge to find transiting planets that you have to be looking at really hundreds of thousands of stars, if you're looking in sort of a wide field sense, and observe them continuously for years to find things. And so that's what makes it a little bit challenging for MicroObservatory as itself to find new planets.
Right. Okay. Anybody else out there have questions?
Oh, please come on back, please. Clearing all this at your convenience, sir.
Ooh, sorry, what was that? I couldn't quite
Is that
hear.
one of us? I don't think so. I'm not sure what that was, some interference or something. So just the folks who are on the line, I really thank you so much, Zach.
Thank you.
Hannah. And Hannah, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was our pleasure to drop in and say
right.
hello.
So the educators who are online now, and there's a bunch more, are going to be hosting groups of, sometimes family groups, sometimes teacher groups, sometimes youth groups, to do workshops on exoplanets. And so I want the educators to know that this kind of opportunity to have a drop-in session is available, not only from Zach, but we have kind of a collection of a couple dozen exoplaneteers who've agree that if the time is mutually agreeable, do it. And so, as you see, it's easy to do. You can ask lots of different questions. Your audience can find out things not only about exoplanets, but about what it's like to be an astronomer. So,
but note that Zach's only in Chile till next week.
yeah. So you won't always get this opportunity.
Yeah, this was a stroke of luck, I guess.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up our workshop with them. But
great. Well, it was nice to chat with you all. Thank you so much. Take care.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great. I think you have to figure out how to leave the meeting. There you go. Good. Well, well, that was pretty fun. He didn't share. I wanted him to share some messy data, but he didn't.
We can get that.
We yeah. And actually, I'm told my community results are now working, so we can look at a bunch of. I hope. Actually, maybe I have to do a refresh.
Yeah. What target are we looking for?
Well, we don't have WASP 12 in here. I just wanted to show some examples of data. So,
Okay.
so this is a very messy HAT P10, but this same observer has been very diligent. And so here's another. Ugh. But here's another. Okay, so you can see that on a good night, you can get, I think we definitely, here's the predicted transit.
I can believe that.
Yeah. But I can definitely believe that that's a
dip.
That's a dip. Here's HAT P20.
Messy incoming.
Messy, but right. And there's HAT P25. That seems like a mess here. Let's see. Oh, wait.
Oh, more data.
Yeah, that's kind of messy too. But we have a few HAT P25s. Let's check them out. That one, there must not have been anything that night. Ugh. So looks like we need a good, yeah, see he comments, it seems like there's no V shape or U shape. So we really, one of the things that's authentic about you doing this with your group, you want to try and find the best night you can, but you can publish these results as a group. So if I went to our WASP, WASP 12, where are we here? WASP.
The bottom.
Thank you. Thank you. So I could say we're not quite sure we have detected a transit, but perhaps if we reduce more images from 9 to midnight. And then we share that. And now when we go to the community, under Mary D, oops, I think I have to refresh. Refresh. There we go. Ah.
I think it gave you an error when you tried uploading it.
Oh, you saw an error when I was on the last one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll have to try that again. So we want to make sure you can publish your data. DIY workshop data. Not sure if there's a transit. I'm going to try again. Experiencing problems. Please contact our system administrator. Okay.
Okay.
By the time you guys do this, we won't have to contact your system administrator. Okay. last thing the last thing I wanted to make sure you knew about, which again we got to on the webinar that went successfully the first time, is on the Moodle, which Erica sent you usernames and passwords to sign on to, and I did see that David and Susan and Christy said hello. But on this page we have the webinar, the first one that was recorded. But we also, one thing I showed on that webinar was the sample workshop outline for the workshop that we're doing here. And that might be useful to you. We're planning a 3-hour workshop and starting with a 2-minute video intro. There's actually these are a couple of nice 2-minute intros about exoplanets. Then we were going to do the modeling the universe activity, where visitors make their models of the universe, and whether it contains just one solar system or many, you can have that discussion. And then we were going to do the human orrery. So we have people kinesthetically orbiting a star, and we talk about what orientation you have to be in to see a transit. And that activity is also on the Moodle, as is this making models for detecting transits. So all these activities that are in my draft sample outline are also on the Moodle.
I was trying to, okay.
To help you do planning. And then I did put on this link. There's a Sky and Telescope article interview with Zach, actually, about the star that he's that he's observing in Chile right now. And Frank passed along this link, so that's something you might want to take a look at. This is a artist drawing of the planet he's looking at, and there's a little interview with him about what he thinks the atmosphere of that planet might be like, and that's what he's collecting data on right now. So I guess the main thing is I want to ask if there's questions from the group about how to proceed, or if any of you start to use the tool and you feel you need help. I want you to know that you can, we can set up a quick Zoom to have a personal troubleshooting session, but I want to make sure that you guys are supported and having a successful workshop with some public participants between now, unfortunately, between now and April 3rd. Are there any questions at this point?
I just want to get in and start to try some of the things like David was talking about, setting up a group and that kind of thing, to make sure that I can handle all of that.
Yes, exactly. And we're more than happy to help, Susan. So if you have any trouble, if you want to do it with some colleagues and see how that works, and then and that was one of the in the last email I asked you to invite me to the group. So when you make a group, for adding members, add Mary D.
Okay.
And that way you'll always know if you were successful, because I can tell you were. I'll either email you or put a note in the workshop discussion forum letting you know I got the group invitation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? David, sorry, I muted you because there was some, there we go. Jordan, have you gotten any sense, given that you're kind of starting from the back end here and working your way forward?
Yeah, I think it's gonna go well on this end. I mean, some of it's familiar from doing the star observing and stuff before, so I think I just need a little bit of time to play with it and get a little bit more familiarized with the website, and I think we should be fine.
Okay. Good. And Jean, I know Kursla was on earlier and during a disastrous webinar, but we did record it, the next one, which was more successful. And so I hope she hasn't given up and run away. Jean may have me on mute. Okay. All right.
So she didn't run away.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, if there are no questions at this time, I will contact you if there's an issue with getting the vendor forms or making sure we have you, your organization in the database so that you can invoice us. I will send you a copy of what the PO looks like as soon as we've got it set up. And probably our purchasing officer will send it for your signature as well.
Okay, thank you. I am in the process of getting those completed and getting ready to put that online to you.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for being willing to try out a workshop. I'm going to be sending you shortly a link to a little kind of evaluation form about these workshops, although I might wait until we potentially have another interaction before I send you that link. But there'll be a link for you to give some feedback, and then later on we'll also have a link that your participants can use for a post workshop evaluation, and there'll also be a PDF file so you can have those, have them fill it out in paper and pencil during your workshop at the end of it, or write online at the end of the workshop. All right.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. We'll be in communication.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.